Part 57. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 561. Chapter 561 Dragon God Shackles Master Servant Contract. The four elders answered clearly, Dear Dragon God's successor, the Dragon God has passed away for 10,000 years, and the only descendant of the dragon is you. Only you can speak of such a magical and noble thing language. Hearing their answers, Suchen felt extremely disappointed, and the huge emotional gap made him feel dazed for a while. After a while, Suchen asked, Where is the Lord Dragon God buried? The elder replied, In order to suppress the demons in the Maha Abyss, the Lord Dragon God used his infinite life as a guide 10,000 years ago. Turned into a powerful seal that sealed the connection between the Maha Abyss and the surface world. However, 10,000 years later, the seal has been loosened. Although the demons from the Maha Abyss cannot come up, the creatures on the surface can enter. Suchen remembered that the mummy queen lying on the ground seemed to have said that she would throw herself into the Maha Abyss. That place must be a terrifying place similar to the 18th level of hell. Suchen asked, Where is the Maha Abyss? The elder replied respectfully, It's just below the purgatory magma in the Sword Mark Valley. Suchen said, Oh, he had never heard of the name Sword Mark Valley. I don't want to ask any more questions. The top priority is to get out of this hellish place. So Suchen asked the four black elf elders, So, can I leave now? The four elders said respectfully, The descendant of the dragon god is the master of our black elf clan. Naturally, he can stay or leave at will. Suchen he raised his eyebrows, pointed at the mummy of the queen on the ground and said, Don't you mind? The four elders glanced at the dead queen, and said, The descendant of the dragon god is our master, and the master wants the slave to wait for death, even Her Highness the queen. I can't blame the master at all. Suchen sneered and said, Very good. Take a big step out of the script. Owner. Please wait. The four elders stopped in front of Suchen eagerly and knelt down together. Suchen had a serious face, thinking that these old ladies wanted to go back on their word, so he shouted, What? Regret again? The four elders had sad faces, which made people feel pity when they looked at them, and they cried out sadly, Master. Lord Dragon God has passed away for 10,000 years, and the shackles placed on us by Dragon God have also existed for 10,000 years. The black elves have been passed down from generation to generation. As long as the descendants of the Dragon God sign a master-servant blood contract with our black elves, we, the black elves, can return to the elves. Master, please save us. Suchen remained silent and thought for a long time before saying, What is the blood contract between master and servant? As long as we sign a master-servant blood contract, our black elf clan and our master will be our master's servants forever. If our master dies, our black elf clan will also perish. The black elf elder replied respectfully. Suchen asked strangely, You are also willing to sign this? The four black elf elders shed tears silently, and one of the elders said sadly, If you can live on the surface of the earth again with the appearance of a pure elf family, and return to the mother tree of life, even if you die, what are you afraid of? Suchen was silent. He probably guessed what the so-called shackles the dragon god put on them were. They probably changed their appearance and could only live in this underground cave. Suchen asked again, Why did the dragon god will you be put in shackles? Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading, collect, recommend, and share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 562. Chapter 562 The Ancient Elf Bane Awakens. The four elders sighed together and said bitterly, 10,000 years ago, the demons invaded our ancient continent. Our leader betrayed his allies and took refuge with the demons. At this point, they all fell silent. These past events that happened thousands of years ago may be the last thing they want to mention and the biggest pain point. However, although their expressions were very real, Suchen did not dare to believe them. After signing the so-called blood contract of master and servant, who knows what will happen? Who knows whether the blood contract signed at that time is a blood contract between master and servant, and whether the positions of master and servant will be secretly changed. People's hearts are unpredictable. Seeing Suchen's hesitant look, the four elders looked at each other, bit their fingers, pressed the blood from their fingertips to their foreheads, and whispered a spell. Suchen was startled, thinking that these old women were so angry that they were too soft to be tough, so he took a few steps back. The spell was not long, and after a minute, 4 black marks rose from the foreheads of the 4 elders and shot towards Suchen quickly. Suchen yelled, unable to escape, and was penetrated into the body by 4 black marks. "You! What did you just do to me?" Suchen was furious. The 4 elders knelt on the ground and said with unprecedented respect, "Master, this slave has become your most humble slave. Master, please trust us." As soon as Suchen's thoughts changed, 4 breaths appeared inexplicably in his mind. He could clearly feel the thoughts of the 4 elders in front of him. His intuition even told him that even if they died, they would not dare to disobey his orders. "Suchen, it was the first time I saw such a magical thing, so I ordered with the intention of verifying it. Slap yourself." The 4 elders slapped themselves without any hesitation, and their voices were so crisp. "Forward," Suchen thought for a while and realized that beating himself could be interpreted as a trick. In order to verify the information and intuition in his mind, Suchen ordered, "You commit suicide." The eyes of the 4 elders fluctuated slightly, but they seemed to be possessed by the devil. I could only hold tears in my eyes, pick up the machete, and wipe it on my neck. When Suchen saw that these girls were serious, he quickly shouted, "Stop!" The 4 elders immediately stopped moving, but there was a medium deep blood mark on their necks, and blood was still flowing little by little. If Suchen shouted slower, the artery in their necks would probably be broken. Suchen completely believed what they said now. Since they had reached this point, he couldn't be too uninterested. So he nodded and said, "I promised to make that blood contract with you." The 4 elders cried with joy, worshipped at Suchen's feet, and choked with sobs, "Thank you, Master. Thank you to the Almighty Dragon God. I, the Black Elf clan, can finally return to the ground." Got it? Woo! Woo! The trumpet made of the horn of the one-horned rhinoceros unique to the Black Elves clan issued a low roar, calling all the Black Elves to gather at the sacrificial site. There was no notice or explanation, and every Black Elf who came over seemed to know it without asking, and all of them looked solemn and excited. It was the long-sleeping elven bloodline in their bodies that was about to stir, and it was also the ancient elven mother tree that was sending a long-lost call to them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 563. Chapter 563, Blood Sacrifice. The transformation of the Black Spirit. Except on the computer, Suchen had never seen so many women gathered together in his life, waiting for him to announce their fate. This made his little heart a little excited. After all, the contrast between his past life and this life was too huge. In his previous life, he was a loser without a girlfriend, but in this life, he is about to become the master of more than 1,000 women. Gee Nima, I am very excited just thinking about it. After the 4 elders knelt down and worshipped Suchen, they said to the clan members, "The successor of the dragon god has arrived." The ancestral motto of our Black Elf clan once said, "When the successor of the dragon god arrives, it will be the day when our Black Elf clan is reborn." Compatriots, sisters, for our rebirth, start the blood sacrifice of the whole clan. More than 1,000 delicate girls cheered in unison, which made Suchen's blood boil. The Black Elves in the field looked at Suchen eagerly, hoping that he could change their destiny and let them regain their own dignity. A black elf walked neatly to a black giant cauldron, cut his palm open, and poured a small bowl of blood into the black giant cauldron. Bowls of blood slowly poured into the giant cauldron. By the time all the blood sacrifices of the 1,200 members of the Black Elf clan were completed, the giant cauldron was already 8% full with blood. After the Black Elf blood sacrifice was completed, they all looked at Suchen eagerly. Suchen coughed, walked to the giant cauldron, endured the pain and cut open his palm, leaving behind a wisp of blood that only belonged to the descendants of Yan and Huang. A loud roar of dragons faintly came from the sky, and suddenly the storm surged above the Black Elf's lair. After a while, the sky was filled with black clouds, and bursts of muffled thunder resounded throughout the world. Crack! An extremely thick purple lightning penetrated the earth and hit the giant cauldron. The whole Black Elves and Suchen shook, and two click sounds rang in their hearts. The sound was the sound of the shackles placed on the Black Elf by the dragon god breaking. The second sound was the sound of the completion of the master-servant blood contract signed by the entire Black Elf family and Suchen. The power of the dragon god, the appearance of thunder and lightning, and the blood as the contract was signed. Master and servant. The master is alive and the servant is alive. When the master dies and the servant dies, heaven and earth are witnesses, and the sun and moon can be used as proof. From then on, the fate of the 1,200 people in the Black Elf clan is completely consistent with the one in front of him who still has some bad habits. Humans are tied up. No one knows where the fate of the Black Elves will go. 1,200 Black Elves knelt down in front of Suchen and shouted softly, "Master." Suchen never dreamed that one day, more than 1,000 beautiful girls would call him master in front of him. But now, it happened so absurdly. Then it happened. With the word master from the Black Elf, the appearance of the Black Elf changed dramatically in an instant. The black skin became white and smooth, the dark eyes turned into blue eyes, the ears became more pointed and longer, and the aura of the whole body it is no longer as dark as before and has become extremely holy. This is not an ugly duckling turning into a swan, this is clearly an African chicken turning into a white, rich, and beautiful one. The most important thing is that such a large group of fair and beautiful women are all my maids. Oh! Suchen was about to melt at this moment. Happiness came so quickly that it actually made him panic. What are we going to do? Suchen said a little incoherently _Fe. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 564. The 564th creates a clan. Danger is coming. The 4 elders lowered their heads and said, "Master, please tell me." Suchen raised the chin of an elder with his fingers. She was still stunningly beautiful under her black skin, but now she looked even more beautiful against the backdrop of her fair and smooth skin. Gorgeous and charming. Suchen looked at the other 3 elders who also had their own merits, and couldn't help but feel full of happiness in his heart. He decided to build a new nation in this other world based on 1,200 black elves. For the elves, the mother tree of life is their belief, their root, and the basis for their reproduction. The black elves have now completely become pure elves, so they naturally need the mother tree of life. Otherwise, they who have become elves will no longer be able to get pregnant inexplicably on a full moon night, and can only bear new elves with the help of the mother tree of life like fruit. Of course, such elves can be both female and male. According to legend, the elves do not have sex. Suchen felt incredible when he heard the news. If the elves don't have sex, then why are there male and female elves? Isn't it unnecessary? From ancient times to the present, the elves have never intermarried with other tribes. Even if there were female elves captured by slave traders and violated by other tribes, they would not become pregnant. But Suchen was different. Maybe it was because the dragon god had the blood of the descendants of Yan and Huang, So the first female elf he was blessed with firmly told him afterwards that she would definitely become pregnant with him. However, there is no need to worry about the cost of houses, milk powder, and cram schools here. Suchen doesn't mind as many children as he wants. He is destined to be a man who creates a nation. For thousands of years, the Black Elves have always treasured the seeds of the mother tree of life. Today, they can finally give birth to this seed. Right next to the Black Elf's lair, they chose a piece of terrain that was easy to defend and difficult to attack, and solemnly planted the seed in the center of the land. Suchen asked when the seed would grow up and give birth to a baby. The elves happily said, "Soon, 500 years later." It seems that the arduous task of multiplying these 1,200 elves into a large clan still has to fall on Suchen. The next day, Suchen led 2 elf elders to an elegant place in the underground lair. Not knowing that danger is coming. The orcs have always been a very restless race. They have never learned to farm and produce with peace of mind like humans, dwarves, and elves. They only graze in the most extensive way, laughing when they have enough to eat, and grabbing everywhere when they are not enough. However, this huge group of ethnic groups living on the grasslands are very poor, and they can still have children no matter how they live. And except for a few special ethnic groups, all of them are strong and powerful, and they are even more desperate when fighting. Almost all races hate and fear this race, but there are also special cases. The Shellan family is a relatively prominent family in human countries, but its reputation is not very good. Because they started out as human traffickers, and this family has developed for 300 years and still mainly deals in human trafficking. The reason why they have a bad reputation is that they have no taboos. They are willing to sell people of any race as long as they can make a profit, including cooperating with the most ferocious orcs. Online games. I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 565. Chapter 565 Mercenary Group. Humans, Goblins and Human Magicians. A mercenary group of about 500 people is the main execution agency of this cooperation project. This mercenary group consists of 200 orcs, 200 humans, and another 100 members of other races, and the composition is quite mixed. There is only one reason for them to work together, which is to earn enough gold coins. Several goblin thieves who were only 1 meter tall but extremely agile were sent out to find out the news, while the remaining mercenaries set up camp where they were. Although they are in the deepest part of the Black Forest, and they can see the white snow on the Maha Abyss within a few dozen miles of walking, they are not worried about being attacked because they have this confidence. Roar. Bursts of roars and sounds of fighting came from the camp. Several human magicians wearing black magic robes sat in a corner, glanced at the orcs fighting over there with disgust and hatred, and whispered, "These disgusting group, the maggots won't settle down for a day." Another magician sneered and said, "If we don't let them fight to vent their excess energy, we will all suffer when they go crazy." The magicians who heard this suddenly tightened their hearts, and lowered their noble heads with some fear and unwillingness. "One day, I will burn these disgusting maggots with fire. I will banish their souls to the Maha Abyss, especially their foul mouths that should rot." After the magician finished speaking, he silently walked into his tent. The roar in the camp lasted for a full hour and a half and gradually subsided. A Tauren nearly 3 meters tall spewed evil breath from his big nose. Standing in the middle of the camp, beating his thick chest and roaring again and again. In today's gladiatorial battle, he was the final winner. The losers defeated by him either suffered injured tendons or broken bones. The orcs believe in absolute power. They are also the only ones who believe in absolute power. A race that is not afraid of magic by nature. No grass will grow on the land they have trampled on. According to past practice, the winner has the right to select a favorite mercenary from the camp. As long as the mercenary's life is not harmed, the winner can do anything to that mercenary. Fortunately, there are no female mercenaries in this mercenary group, otherwise she may not live for 3 days. However, those humans or goblin mages with thin skin and tender flesh I'm in trouble. Today I don't know which unlucky guy will be attracted by that fierce Tauren. Just when the Tauren was looking for the unlucky guy he wanted in the camp with red eyes, a goblin who went out to spy he ran back excitedly and said sharply. Elf. I saw elves. There are so many, all female elves. Hearing the goblin's words, the Tauren turned his head instantly. He still remembered that he tasted an elf 5 years ago. Although it was a male elf, it tasted better than the orc woman. And now this woman elf, I don't know what kind of ecstasy it feels like. Roar. A 2-meter-tall lion-headed man strode over, easily grabbed the short goblin, got close to the goblin's green face, stared into his green bean-like eyes and said, "Goblin, can I trust you?" The goblin kicked his legs in the air, waved his thin arms and shouted, "I swear on my own life, it is absolutely true." Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 566. Chapter 566 Enemy Attack. Quasi-Battle. The lion-headed man laughed and shook off the goblin. This race that takes the oath as a fart is the most disgusting to the orcs. If these wretched and despicable goblins weren't still useful, they would have torn these goblins into pieces long ago. The lion-headed man was obviously the leader of this mercenary group. He pointed at a human thief and ordered, "Go and bring the news back." The human thief nodded and immediately disappeared into the woods. Everyone gathered together in unison. If this news was true, then they could end this damn mission early and get more bounties. Because women from the Elven clan have always been the most sought-after items in various slave markets. Not long after, the human thief came back quietly and walked into the camp. He nodded to the lion-headed man. Roar. The lion-headed man raised the axe in his hand and said loudly, "Brothers, raise the weapons in your hands and follow me. Gold coins and beautiful women are waving to you." Roar. The 500 mercenaries in the entire mercenary group roared together, and even the group of magicians who had been bullied screamed with depression in their chests. Without any concealment or preparation, the 500 mercenaries were led by thieves lead the way and run directly to the place where the elves were found. Here, no power can defeat them. Unless they have the absolute power of level 9, otherwise, they are the kings of this dark forest. The mercenary group is 1 kilometer away from their home. The black elves who became elves discovered this group of uninvited guests. They immediately drew their bows and arrows, aiming at the enemy. They have been living in this land for 10,000 years, and they are familiar with all kinds of battles. They believe that this time they can be like before. Easily defeated the enemy. There were 1,198 elves, more than twice the number of the mercenary group. When the mercenary group was 100 meters away from their home, the elves shot out the sharp arrows in their hands. With a buzz sound, a black rain fell into the chaotic array of the mercenary group. Only a few warriors with weak combat power groaned a few times. Some of the other warriors ignited their strong fighting spirit, and some were like with their thick skin and muscles. The orcs charged forward against the rain of arrows. A fiery red color suddenly appeared in the sky above the elves, and within a second, a rain of fire fell from the sky. Fortunately, the elves were agile enough, dodged this area of magic in time. The mercenary warriors charged extremely fast. In just 1 or 2 seconds, the elves only shot 2 bursts of arrows, and the other party rushed in arrogantly, fighting with the group of female elves. Come to close combat. The elves are better in numbers and are more agile. The weaker human and goblin warriors are the first to be solved by the female elf scimitars. However, the magicians on the opposite side are a great threat. From time to time, once the incoming magic entangles an elf, the elf will be immediately beaten into a pulp by the fierce warriors of the mercenary group. Dozens of elves used the lush woods to hide their figures and attack the group of magicians. Approaching. Just as he was about to reach the distance where the group of magicians could shoot arrows, there was a buzz sound, and a large early warning spell was activated. Dozens of elves present were all illuminated by the strong light spell that followed. Don't open your eyes. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 567. Chapter 567, Betrayal of Master and Commit Mass Suicide. Run. The leading female elf screamed in pain. In the blink of an eye, one of her legs was cut off neatly by the mercenary thief waiting at the side. Before the strong light spell was dissipated, another area of magic mud was cast. The chanting of the technique was completed, which perfectly blocked the hope of this group of female elves to escape. The battle here only lasted for more than 10 seconds. Most of the dozens of female elves who had lost their sight were killed, and only 11 climbed up. The disoriented elves behind the tree were captured alive. On the other side, the charge formation composed of orcs used a sharp triangle to kill the elves wantonly. Anyone who was hit by the sharpest point of this triangle formation would be trampled into a pulp. The delicate and light-bodied female elves have no chance of winning in the face of this collision. The two black elf elders have already understood that these uninvited guests are definitely the most powerful enemies that their black elf clan has ever encountered. Even if they are commonly used, the kiting method was useless when facing this group of thick-skinned enemies with super strong defenses. Without any hesitation, they chose to retreat. A sharp whistle sounded, and all the elves fled in all directions. This was the best way to escape with the highest survival rate. Boom. 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 As if there was a transparent barrier around it, all the escaping elves were bounced back. Outside the grass, a dozen magicians stood up staggeringly with sweat. In order to arrange this huge confinement magic, it took a lot of effort. They lost dozens of their cores and all the magic power of everyone. However, looking at the current effect, it is still worth it. The mercenary group's triangle charge formation, and what follows is a one-sided massacre. The only thing that gives the lion-headed leader a headache. I just hope that these damn guys can kill less female elves. You know, if these pure female elves are sold outside, each one can be worth at least 1,000 gold coins. Ah, the screams of female elves kept coming. 2 elven elders struggled to support the battle. The original number of nearly 1,200 tribesmen has now dropped sharply to less than 500. They are no longer black elves and have lost their only magic, but the only mother tree of life that can provide them with the source of magic power has not even sprouted. Now they only have bows and arrows and scimitars in their hands. Facing opponents who are stronger than them, the space for them to dodge is restricted by magic. There is really no way to go from heaven to earth. The elders who were forced to have no choice finally screamed in despair, "Betray the master." All the elves who heard the sentence had a look of determination after a brief period of confusion, and shouted to their companions around them, "Betray the master." Both the female elves who were still fighting or those who were captured understood the meaning of the sentence in an instant. For any servant who signed a blood contract between master and servant, there is only one outcome for betraying the master, and that is death. Rather than being humiliated here, it is better to choose death. This is their choice. Seeing that the situation was wrong, the lion-headed leader thought for a moment and whispered no. Before he could make any move, within a few breaths, nearly 500 living female elves all collapsed, bleeding from their orifices and died. Feeler reminds you, 3 things to do in reading, collection, recommendation, share, online games. I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 568. Chapter 568, Tragic Massacre. The punishment for betraying the blood contract between master and servant is very serious, especially for the servant. As long as the thought of betraying the master arises, he will suffer the heartache of thousands of ants. If this thought is strong enough, he will bleed directly from his 7 orifices and die. For the sake of their dignity, even if thousands of ants eat away their hearts, even if they bleed to death from their 7 orifices, what do they have to fear? All the elves present died, which was the last result that all members of the mercenary group wanted to see. After people were stunned for a while, they left reluctantly amid the roar of the lion-headed leader and the sound of whipping. The countless corpses left here do not need to be cleaned. It will not take long before countless beasts and monsters come over to take on the task of cleaning up. The mercenaries didn't want to fight with the hungry monsters over these useless corpses. The wind blows here, carrying the strong smell of blood, and carrying the smell into the distance. This place will soon become a huge banquet venue. However, the protagonists at the banquet are not people, but the food at the banquet is people. In the underground lair, 2 charming female elf elders stood next to Suchen, frowning and saying, "Master, why is the slave so flustered?" When the 3 of them walked out of the underground lair, they saw what they saw. It's a sure scene. The 2 elders looked at the tragic scene in front of them with splitting eyes. They pulled out their scimitars and were about to drive away the hungry beasts, but Suchen held them back tightly. There were too many grotesque beasts, or rather, too many dead ones. There were stumps of limbs and broken arms everywhere, and the beasts that came after smelling the smell ignored their past grudges and munched on them. The 2 elven elders fainted as they listened to the sound of chewing their own people. Suchen carried the 2 elders back to the underground nest and returned to the entrance of the cave. He endured nausea and vomiting and watched everything in the field carefully. He could see many corpses with even wounds, which were definitely not the work of ferocious beasts. He could even find large traces of fire. The most important thing is that among the more than 1,000 elven corpses, there are also dozens of corpses of other races. According to some common sense that the elders told him, among the dozens of alien corpses, there were humans, goblins, and orcs. He didn't know if there were still elves alive, whether the surviving elves had been captured, or whether they had successfully escaped. The current fact is that judging from the current number of elves' corpses, the vast majority of elves are dead. A 2-meter-long black wolf stopped eating, bared its teeth at Suchen at the entrance of the cave, and made a low warning sound. Suchen glanced at He Lang, but he was surprisingly calm, without any expression, and returned to the underground lair. In his mind, the blood of the elves outside the cave entrance formed a river, winding along the grass and rocks, and everything along the way was dyed a dazzling bright red. The beasts enjoyed their feast regardless, chewing the flesh, blood, and bones mixed with clothing, vegetation and bones in their mouths. 2 hours ago, they were still a group of lively and beautiful elves. Calling his master, a blush appeared on his face. 2 hours ago, I was still planning how to start the plan of creating a new nation. These beautiful elves will be my foundation, _ You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 569. Chapter 569. A Cruel World. In just 2 hours, the living turned into the dead, and hope turned into despair. Is this the nature of this world? Suchen closed his eyes, and the scenes of Shura prison flashed through his mind, murmuring in a low voice. It turns out that wherever there are living creatures, the rules of survival are the same. The law of the jungle only manifests itself in different ways. Suchen blocked the main door of the lair to prevent wild beasts from entering. There are also some elves' reserves in the lair, which is enough for the 3 of them. During this time, he has to think about some things carefully, because he discovered, he is not living in heaven. On the contrary, it is very likely that he will fight with the devils in hell. Whether he can survive, only God knows. Looking at him lying on the bed, already asleep, but still shivering instinctively. With the two elf elders together, Suchen finally realized that his woman needed him to protect him. But, how could he protect his woman? Suchen couldn't even beat his own woman. Let alone the one he saw when he just traveled through time. The white ape and the red dragon, powerful beings of that level, could kill themselves with just one toe. On the other hand, the two elf elders woke up and definitely wanted to take revenge, but how could the three of them get revenge? Even survival is a problem in this hellish place. Power. Power. Suchen has never wanted it so much as he does today. This is a violent world, protected by violence. Reinforce the debris blocking the door of the nest. The beasts outside are all surprisingly strong, and the thing blocking the door may not be safe enough. In his previous life, he cooked and ate by himself. His craftsmanship was not that good and he could cook. The ingredients here are too different from those in his previous life. I can only try my best to make these foods as delicious as possible, hoping that the delicious food can dilute their sadness a little. My women are not just thrown away after playing with them, at least my conscience can't bear it, I am still a man. After making the food, he ate a little and kept the rest warm, then sat next to the two elf elders and looked at them. Only then did Suchen realize that he didn't even know their names. He. Suchen laughed a little at himself. It seems that I have been single for too long and I no longer care about others. The only thing that makes me happy is that my body seems to be getting stronger and stronger. It is most likely due to drinking the red dragon's blood. In just a few days, I have actually grown 2 centimeters taller and my muscles are also a little stronger shape. Not knowing how to practice martial arts in this world, Suchen was very eager to find a way to increase his strength. By the time Suchen and the three of them came out of the nest, it was already 3 days later. There were no trees covering the ground. The place is sunny, the grass is luxuriant, and you can occasionally hear the chirping of birds, making it a peaceful scene. The new home originally chosen by the elves is now full of fist-sized gadflies, surrounding the smelly ground, up and down. Flying away. There were no bones left. Yulan and Ruoshui shed tears silently and followed Suchen as they walked around the group of gadflies. "Master, please wait," Ruoshui suddenly shouted. Suchen looked at Ruoshui in confusion, only to see her swaying her body, quickly rushing into the gadflies, and then came back with a swoosh _fe. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection, recommendation share, online games. I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 570. Chapter 50. Seed of the Mother Tree of Life. The swarm of gadflies stirred only slightly, then returned to normal. Suchen looked at the smelly black thing in Ruoshui's hand and asked, "What is this?" Yulan said, "Master, this is the seed of our Mother Tree of Life." The seed of the Mother Tree of Life was originally only the size of a broad bean. Now wrapped in blood or flesh and bone residue, about the size of an egg. If the water pours out some water from the skin bag, carefully clean the dirt on the seeds. After a while, the seeds revealed their colorful brilliance. Suchen looked at this obviously different seed with some surprise. Ruoshui said sadly, "It is the soul of our people. After their death, they are attached to the seeds of the Mother Tree of Life. As long as the Mother Tree of Life grows, they can still be reborn. But the memory is gone." Suchen took the seeds in Ruolan's hand, felt them, and suddenly said, "I can feel them, they are all here." Yulan and Ruoshui looked at him. Suchen added, "It should be that the blood contract between master and servant is still valid. 1198 elves are all here." Ruoshui and Yulan looked at the place where the clan members died with red eyes. "Maybe we should leave here and go somewhere with people. Maybe you can find your enemies," Suchen said. 1198 tribesmen have died, and there are only 2 of them left in the huge black elf race. This is no longer a question of revenge, but to find the enemy, and then do everything possible to kill them. The Black Forest is very big. In the past, the Black Elves could be bolder. But now there are only 3 of them, and they have to walk carefully through the woods, always alert to the movements around them. Along the way, Suchen learned some basics from them survival skills, but their skills cannot be learned. They are born with them. The strength of their skills is only related to their low talent. However, no matter how careful they are, they can only guard against the beasts and poisonous insects in the Black Forest. But you can't guard against the mercenaries and adventurers walking in the dark. Big Stone. I can't walk anymore, I miss home, I want to go home. Several embarrassed adventurers walked out of the dense trees. One of them, a delicate girl, threw away the magic wand in her hand and stood there stamping her feet. Big Stone was the oldest in their 5-person adventure team. One of them, but only 18 years old, with a ring of fur around the corners of his mouth. Dasharu said helplessly, and Yuna, hold on for a while, and we can find a place to camp and rest, okay? The girl named Enyana pouted, lowered her head and played with the hem of her clothes, but refused to leave. A short and stocky boy came over and comforted Enyana, let me carry you. Don't want, Enyana turned her head, and then shouted, I want to carry a big stone. As the captain, Dashitu helplessly untied the sword from his back, squatted on the spot and said, come up. Enyana secretly laughed as if her plot had succeeded, and happily climbed onto the broad shoulders of the big stone. Swish, 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 there was a commotion in the bushes. The 4 teenagers immediately became alert. After seeing clearly that it was their companions who came out, they let out a long sigh of relief.